watching News Epicenter with me, Maria Shakil. There was high drama on the streets of Kolkata and Howrah as the West Bengal Police conducted a massive crackdown on the BJP's Nabanna Chalo march after the Saffron Party was denied permission. The march was led by top BJP leaders of the state to protest against the corruption scandals that have rocked the Mamata Banerjee government. Hundreds of BJP workers from across West Bengal descended on Kolkata and started the march towards the state secretariat in Howrah. The cops lathi charged the protesters, fired tear gas shells and deployed water cannons. Leader of opposition Suvendu Adhikari and other BJP leaders, including Locket Chatterjee, were detained by the cops, while several BJP workers were injured in the clash along with 27 police personnel. BJP claims over 1,200 workers have been arrested. As tensions continue on the ground, the BJP moved the Calcutta High Court alleging the police used excessive force against party workers. The court has directed the Home Secretary to submit a report by the 19th of September. The TMC has hit back at the BJP, accusing it of creating a social disturbance for narrow partisan politics. The BJP has accused the Mamata Banerjee government of attacking democracy by denying the opposition the right to dissent. Remember, the TMC is facing charges of corruption in connection to the recruitment of teachers through the SSC. Former State Education Minister and close aide of Mamata Banerjee, Bharatiya Chatterjee, was arrested in August after mountains of cash and incriminating documents were recovered. TMC's Birbhum District President Anubrata Mondal has been arrested in connection to an investigation into illegal cattle smuggling, while Mamata Banerjee's nephew Abhishek Banerjee is accused of being involved in coal smuggling scam. The TMC has dismissed all charges, calling it political vendetta. The face-off is just another reminder of the BJP's all-out war against Mamata Banerjee after rising as the principal opposition to the TMC in the last elections in 2021. But for the common man of Bengal, is this political dissent or discord? Before I get the guests, here's what happened today.
Clashes, lathi charge, stone pelting, tear gas shells, water cannons, and even crude bombs. Every form of force was used to clamp down on BJP's Nabanna Chalo march. Hundreds of BJP workers from across the state landed up in Kolkata and neighbouring Howrah to take part in a march to the secretariat to protest against alleged corruption by the Trinamool Congress government. The police had not given permission for the march and put up barricades in several places. But what followed was completely unprecedented. Angry BJP workers came face to face with the police and mayhem unfolded.
Major, tussle right now going on between the two sides. Obviously, as far as the security personnel is concerned, it shields up because these stones and bricks are being thrown, frequently from the other side.
BJP leader Suvendu Adhikari, Locket Chatterjee and Rahul Sinha were stopped by the police near the secretariat and detained after a lot of resistance.
আপনি তো অ্যারেস্ট ডিক্লেয়ার করেছেন আপনি তো আমার গায়ে হাত দিয়েছেন আর দেবে না যা করেছে ঠিক আছে আমি ইনস্ট্রাকশন দিলাম আপনার সামনে কেন ও গায়ে হাত দিবে কেন আমার
In Howrah, the crackdown was most brutal. Protesting BJP workers were manhandled by the police. Water cannons and tear gas shells were fired on them, and they retaliated by throwing bricks at the police. Protesters were lathi-charged and rounded up by the cops.
Unfortunately, I've been hit on my shoulder over here, on my left shoulder, but I think I'm okay. And you can see, the police now right in my backdrop. They are now retreating for a bit. Consistent brickbatting that's happening on them.
The BJP has accused the Mamata Banerjee government of trying to forcibly stop a democratic protest.
ममता जी का साथ आदमी नहीं है, बंगाल का जनता नहीं है, इसलिए जैसे नॉर्थ कोरिया में करता है तानाशाही, इस तरीके से बंगाल में भी तानाशाही कर रहा है।
The TMC defended the crackdown and accused BJP goons of destroying public property. The TMC has been cornered over corruption, with several party leaders, including ministers, being arrested or raided over scams. And now, with this shocking use of force, is the Bengal government on the back foot?
And joining me now, Sudipta Guha is the national spokesperson of the BJP, Riju Datta, spokesperson of the Trinamool Congress, Loknath Chatterjee is lawyer of Calcutta High Court. We also have Radhika Ramaseshan, columnist. Riju Datta, I'm going to begin with you. Right to protest, right to hold rallies is something that the Trinamool Congress really believes and has shown it through its own politics. TMC's rise is through this mode of politics. Then why object to it being done by your political opponent? You are in government and you have just won with a landslide margin.
Thank you, Maria. You know, everybody has the right to dissent. Everybody has the right to protest. But today what we saw, not just Bengal, but the nation, we saw a glimpse of BJP Bengal's hooligans, their stone pelters and their riot mongers. If in the name of protest rally, you throw stones, you destroy public property, you destroy government property, you set ablaze police vehicles, you break the hand of an assistant commissioner of police by beating him black and blue, then the government will use the strict arm of the law and they will take action. Because it is their duty to maintain law and order, and I salute Kolkata Police and Bengal Police for that. Not only that, these rioters have been framed in every media channel, and I will urge the Chief Minister of West Bengal from your show that to unleash bulldozers on them so they get a taste of their own medicine.
So, Dipta Guha, there was a footage that was put out by the Trinamool Congress. A number of channels have picked it up as well, which shows that image on our television screens, which shows that the BJP workers are hitting cops. A cop is caught in this crossfire. What explains this action?
You saw what you saw, that is the last scene of the movie. You need to concentrate on the first scene of the movie, which started yesterday. Actually, not yesterday, it started around 11 years back. You know, this government is without police, this government is practically zero. And they followed the same tradition, and from yesterday morning they started the hooliganism through this police. Let me tell you, our party has booked 3 trains for our workers to travel from North Bengal to South Bengal. You'll see, you can get the footage of your Bengali channel, the News 18 Bangla. This police stopped all our workers from entering into the station. In all these stations like Alipurduar, Coachbihar and all, this cadre police, this bias police, this police of Miss King Zone, they stopped our people to enter and they arrested our
so then the party workers or protesters will attack the cops.
No, why they protested cop? Today it was a program of just 1 hour, it was a rally only. They stopped this rally, they made 3 barriers, and not only that, these TMC goons, they started pelting stones from various buildings and all. Not only that, in the morning, they arrested our MPs or opposition leaders or state president and all. You know very well, this government is absolutely corrupt government.
Can I come in?
Yes, Riju, what really justifies the administrative high-handedness that we saw today?
I will tell you very clearly, Maria. Thus, Nabanna is the West Bengal secretariat where section 144 is there. It is not a dosa shop that anybody can walk into, like nobody can just go and gherao the parliament. You have to understand that they did not have permission to do rally in Howrah, number 1. Number 2, their senior leaders, not a single one of them has a single scratch on their body. And the sorry excuse of leader of opposition, Suvendu Adhikari, simply said, don't touch my body, got in the police car, ran away to the headquarters and unleashed the rioters and the hate mongers on the streets of Calcutta. We will not allow them. We shudder to believe what will have happened if they would have come into power in Bengal. Bengal rejected them, and it's time India will reject them because we have seen their true face today. Enough is enough. But
Riju Datta, we have seen. But look, we are playing the footage that has been put out by the Trinamool Congress as well, while we are looking at the footage of BJP workers, being stopped and manhandled as well. So there are two sides of this story, and both these sides are playing out on the television screen. One moment, Riju. My question is...
One simple question, 10 seconds. Can I please say that?
Okay.
Please.
Okay.
Last 2 weeks, the entire BJP high command was doing prachar in different parts of Bengal for this rally. They spent last 3 days for this particular rally, spent 12 crores. Nothing happened. Why everything happened today? If Trinamool or its police would have stopped it, it could have
Sudipta Guha, if you were looking at mobilizing crowd for so long, nothing happened, then what really justifies? Because there are reports that are suggesting also that there were attacks on the local cops, not just local cops, but also on the shopkeepers.
You see, they are not at all shopkeepers. They are basically goons of TMC.
Everybody is a goon of TMC.
Police, who is also basically a goon. Man said they are basically, I'm telling you, this Miss Kim Jong-un government. Please, allow me, please. I'm not interested. Please allow me. This government is zero without police. These goons, they are also zero without police. So when these goons, they accompanied their police on. And let me tell you what this police did from the very beginning today. The male police, they attacked our lady opposition leader of
not a shred of evidence.
and you will see the footage today.
Lies.
And the female ladies, the lady police, they were sent to harass our opposition leader. But they did just the opposite. But what you should do, they are doing just the opposite.
Mr. Guha is a
why you are talking here? I am not. Why you are interfering? Why you are interfering?
No, I am asking you. Do you have a single shred of evidence? You have the video.
Don't take like this.
Okay, let me bring in Radhika Ramaseshan now, because Swapan Das Gupta, former MP, will also joining me shortly. Radhika, it's BJP versus TMC on the streets, something that has been building up since 2019, I would say, because TMC recognized BJP perhaps as a political force only when they won those number of MPs in 2019 Lok Sabha elections. Do you think this will only get bitter and more violent from here onwards? Because despite the elections of 2021, the political violence played out, then there are raids by central agencies which are being said as political vendetta by the state government, this back and forth that we are seeing between the two sides.
Yeah, this is quintessential Bengal politics being played out on the streets, being played out here on the TV screen between the two spokespersons. You know, first of all, I think Mamta, there's no question that the state government unleashed its police force on the protesters. I mean, you cannot take away the BJP or any opposition's party's right to hold a protest march or a rally or whatever, and then to suddenly say that they spent 12 crores or something, that's not a very germane point in my opinion. If the march was relatively peaceful, why did she have to unleash the police, the cops? This Mamata Banerjee seems to be, to me, comes across as a leader under siege. There's a certain desperation to her approach, to her attitude, to her moves. Then whatever happened, the BJP, yes, there was violence on the part of the BJP workers as well. I mean, you know, we can't sort of obliterate that from the whole scene. But that was a retaliation. It was a blowback to what had happened earlier. So it's really a question of, did the administration have to overreact in this case? I mean, what if they had allowed Suvendu, Adhikari and the others to lead the march up to the secretariat? Okay,
respond to this. You know, that's a huge charge that is coming in from Radhika, that Mamata Banerjee appears to be a leader under siege, Riju Datta, that there is some kind of fear factor that seemed to have gripped your chief minister.
Maria, with all due respect to Radhika ji, she just clearly justified the violence unleashed by BJP, number one.
No, she hasn't.
Number two, she
is justifying the violence, please.
She said retaliation mein police ki gaadi chala denge.
It was retaliation. Go back.
What are you saying? And Radhika ji, you are such a senior columnist. If you know the history of Bengal, and forget Bengal, if you know the history of Mamata Banerjee, do you think the lady who single-handedly uprooted the brutal regime of the left will be affected by 77 MLAs of the BJP? No, we are not bothered. But madam, I will tell you this. It is the people of Bengal who has voted us for 3 times, has given us the responsibility to maintain peace and harmony. So, like I said, they are doing this natak for 13 days. Nothing happened. But today, on the day, if you unleash violence, if you pelt stones, if you destroy government and public properties, if you beat up shopkeepers and assistant commissioners of police, then the West Bengal police will take action. It is their job to do so. You have to understand that very clearly.
Okay, Radhika, quick response.
Any other
Radhika?
BJP
I can only give a perspective from this afar, but from whatever I have seen, the sequence and things, I think the first the stone was cast by, metaphorically, not literally. The first stone was cast by the police, by Mamata Banerjee.
I cannot stand by.
And then came the retaliation, the blowback.
Okay.
There's no question about that.
There is a picture of a BJP leader, Swapan Das Gupta, that has also gone viral on social media, and Swapan Das Gupta is joining me now. Swapan Das Gupta, thank you so much. I'm going to ask my producer to put that photograph of yours as well, where you look injured. Let me begin by asking you about your health. I hope you're keeping well, and what really happened.
Well, Maria, I'm fine now. It was obviously quite a shaky. I was quite shaken by this whole thing. You see, the demonstration of the BJP, one wing of the demonstration, as soon as we near the barricades that were put up, they put water cannon, followed that up with tear gas, almost simultaneously, back to back, and followed it up with a lathi charge. And in between and predictably, there was a mad commotion, really, and the police went in with great deal of thing, quite indiscriminately, hurling their batons at everyone. In that, I think I got a baton at the back and fell down in the mud, which is why it was a bit messy. No, more than anything else, there were people who were there who saved me from further injury. But I think the larger question which really arises at this stage is, this was a high-spirited but a completely peaceful demonstration. And in this demonstration, the police might have its job to prevent people from assembling at the West Bengal government headquarters, which is across the river in Howrah. But under the circumstances, you cannot use indiscriminately tear gas, water cannons, lathi charges, etc., to disperse crowds like this. As it is, they made a lot of things like stopping trains, getting people off trains, all the people who are coming in from different parts of the state. This is no way. This was an organized, prearranged protest rally. And I think there's no place for that. There is a place for that in politics.
Yes. Mr. Swapan Das Gupta, the TMC is accusing the BJP of hooliganism and vandalism. That your party workers were indulging in vandalism at several places, and hence the police resorted to this kind of tear gas shells in order to protect the citizens on the streets.
If at all they can point out, in Santragachhi, the police closed off National Highway, actually put barricades, they built things on the roads. In Howrah, they arrested the people without allowing them to move even an inch. In Kolkata, they wanted to go only to the Howrah Bridge premises, not even enter the Howrah Bridge. And these were the scenes. Yes, you're talking about one particular thing which was happened in one corner of Kolkata in near the police headquarters. I think this doesn't distract from the fact that despite intense provocation, this was a pre-arranged rally. The mobilization for this rally has been going on for a very long time, for at least 3 weeks. I can't see this to be categorized and labeled as some sort of a, hooligan's day out. It wasn't that. It was just ordinary workers. You look at the footage yourself.
Okay. So, my last question to you, sir. Permissions is the question that is being also spoken about. Were permissions sought? And because the scale of mobilization and the entire movement towards Nabanna, of course, it requires permission. So, because you were holding protests, you were holding rallies. So, my question is, what about the permissions?
The permission was sought. It was denied subsequently last night in Howrah. It was allowed in Calcutta. Today, the Kolkata police put out traffic advisories in the morning. When someone puts out traffic advisories, it obviously means a certain, and they said traffic diversions because of this rally, etc. So it's very much there. So I think the state government being disingenuous when it takes recourse to administrative subterfuge to prevent what is essentially a political movement. I think I don't have to mention and talk about the phenomenal wave of corruption and the evidence of that, which is being unearthed almost on a daily basis in the state, and the complete revulsion which is being felt by large sections of the population. And this, as the main opposition party in the state, it was our duty, and it was our dharma to actually to organize protests, take it out, and have a peaceful demonstration to show our determination to oppose it.
All right, Swapan Das Gupta, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Riju Datta, it was a peaceful demonstration till the time it became about provocation. Riju Datta, if your political opponents are holding protests, you should have been a little more circumspect rather than using all kind of administrative force in curbing this entire protest. I mean, protests, rallies are forms of democracy. That's how political parties oppose their political opponents. So what was so unnatural about it happening in Bengal?
Maria, you have asked some excellent questions to Mr. Dasgupta, and I did not get an opportunity to ask him because I would have asked him two very pointed questions. First question, he said that yes, they will not let anybody go to the secretariat. So he pointed out that going and ghirawing the secretariat is out of question because it's the administrative headquarters of Bengal. Now, the first barricade, where the visuals you can see, where people are climbing on the barricades and the water cannons have been spread, it is only 2 kilometers away from the administrative headquarters of Bengal. So what business BJP has there? So but I would have liked to ask Swapan Das Gupta that. And second, if this would have been a peaceful protest rally, I don't know what he is consuming right now. If this would have been a peaceful rally, then in front of the media, which
okay, so
Gupta Gua.
I'm not being
uncivilized. This is absolutely uncivilized and like a TMC. I am asking all the directors. Only a true representative of TMC can speak like this.
See, this man is not even a part of the BJP.
No, you stop now.
I am saying will BJP take action against the rioters?
You stop lying. You stop lying with your foul languages. You stop lying with your foul languages. You stop lying with your bad languages. No, you stop. You will allow us to speak.
These BJP spokespersons have consumed too much gold and they have lost their head.
You the party of hooligans. You are a party of hooligans.
They are resorting to stone-pelting, brick-backing indiscriminately. So calling it a peaceful rally shows their state of mind. They have completely lost their head.
No, what is spoke few minutes back, that Mamata Banerjee came to power single-handedly. That is biggest lie in this whole conversation. From
Are you drunk for national television? What are you talking about? Are you trying to rewrite the history? Stop consuming too much Gomutra. That is my advice to you. You people have lost their heads.
This Yediyurappa is a true liar.
Who is this gentleman? Where have you got him from, Maria?
He is also a liar.
He has no idea
and
what
that's why he is
Bengal
lying here.
Is
No,
he
he is
a
lying
BJP
here.
spokesperson?
No.
Or have you got him from Howrah today?
Single election. Independently. No,
What is he
she
talking
either
about? Is he
joined
trying
hand with
to
Congress or with
disrupt the
BJP.
Bengal history now?
After 2011, she joined hand with police and she does Congress. She came to power with Congress only, and not only Congress, it was ASUCI also who joined her. So he is a true liar. Yediyurappa is a true liar,
If you break government and public property,
like his supreme leader. He is telling lies only. So from and secondly, I am telling you,
simple.
Your government will be there for next few months only. So you wait for some time. Your government will collapse.
Why don't you
Your government will collapse like anything.
Okay, Radhika Ramaseshan now. No. The question here is, okay, let's, because the larger point being made here by the BJP, Radhika Ramaseshan, is that they are holding protests against the corruption of the TMC government, and they are looking at some kind of a clean-up. That's why it was Nabanna Chalo, going straight to the seat of power. The question is that could it have been less administrative force than what we saw? Action, reaction, retaliation, whatever you may say, but the images that are coming from Calcutta also in the last 1 year is also showcasing that the BJP is desperate for power. That they have not really resigned to the fate that as far as the state politics is concerned, they may have increased from 2 to 60 something now because several of their party MLAs left them. But it is also that the BJP is going all out to ensure that in 2024 they increase their tally. So their desperation is also evident.
Certainly, Maria, I completely agree with you. I think the BJP hasn't gotten over the fact that it lost the assembly elections after, taking things to such a pitch that it almost seemed like the votes were waiting to be counted and a BJP government was to be sworn in. That didn't happen. I mean, it was a convincing victory for Mamata Banerjee. There's no doubt about it. And you mentioned corruption. Corruption was also an important plank on which the BJP fought the last elections. I mean, quite a few of Trinamool ministers and functionaries were embroiled in corruption the last time, but clearly the issue did not have much of a popular impact on the ground. Mamata was nonetheless voted in. So this time but I have to say this, the BJP is so persistent. It refuses to give up, and you have to say something for a party which refuses to be put down by a defeat, and is carrying forward its battle. So we just have to see how far it takes the whole corruption issue and whether it plays out politically to the Trinamool's disadvantage and the BJP's advantage. And certainly the BJP would not like to lose even a single seat, less than 18 in the Lok Sabha elections. I think the whole endeavor is to retain its tally or perhaps hope to improve on its tally. So I see the battle intensifying by the day, and it's all preparatory to 2020.
And also, Radhika, immediately after the elections, was there a sense also within the BJP, because of political violence that played out and the observations, and several of its party MPs, also, ministers, there was an example as well in Babul Supriyo who quit, joined the TMC, all of them leaving the party, that it's difficult to defeat Mamata Banerjee or make themselves a significant player in the state of Bengal. And now this is also trying to charge up their workers, sending a message that they matter because of the images that have come in already of those cash mounts and everything, that you can put the sitting government also on a back foot.
Yeah, absolutely. It's important for the BJP to keep its cadre surcharge or its workers. Really don't know if they have much of a cadre force in Bengal. Also, I think there is a problem within the BJP between the newbies and the old guard, which you see even in the Congress. But the entire strategy, the entire approach, everything in the BJP's politics in West Bengal is pinned on one person, and that is Suvendu Adhikari.
That's right.
The leader, the Delhi brass is somehow convinced that Suvendu alone will be able to deliver the goodies. That I'm not very sure whether it's wise to put all the eggs into one basket and depend so much on Suvendu Adhikari to deliver, the results.
All right, Radhika Ramaseshan, always a pleasure to have you on my shows. Riju Datta and Sudipta Gua, thank you so much. Also thanks to Sopan Das Gupta. Shifting focus to our big news maker. India's retail inflation touched 7% in August, up from 6.7% in July. This was fueled by a 7.62% pickup in food prices as industrial production growth in July dropped to the lowest level since April at just 2.4%. This is the 8th successive month that retail inflation has stayed above the central bank's upper threshold of 6% and constitutes a setback to the spending power of households. Rural inflation, which was at 6.8% in July, saw a sharper rise than urban inflation in August, rising to 7.15%. Urban inflation moved up from 6.49% in July to 6.72% in August. The combination of inflation and a tripping industrial recovery has prompted economists to expect a fresh interest rate hike during the monetary policy review at the end of this month. But the Indian equity market looked up past the higher consumer price inflation data and surged for the fourth straight session, with analysts expecting the rally to continue, driven by foreign investors. At the open, the BSE Sensex hit a high of 60,551 points, while the Nifty 50 touched the 18,000 mark for the first time since April. Let's decode the inflation numbers and what does it mean for the household budget. Joining me on the show is our big news maker, Sanjeev Sanyal. He's the member of Economic Advisory Council of the Prime Minister. Mr. Sanyal, really appreciate your time. India's August retail inflation rises to 7%. It is higher than July's brief respite, what was seen as 6.7%. But it remained above the Reserve Bank of India tolerance band of 2.2 to 6% for the 8th consecutive month. How worried is the government and what is the intervention that is being looked into?
First of all, Maria, thank you very much for having me on your show. First of all, do remember that the international context in which this is happening, where international oil prices have been consistently high now for several months. Although they have come down a little bit from the peak, they are still running at over $90 per barrel. That is feeding through to domestic everywhere around the world. This includes India, of course, because we do import the bulk of our energy requirements. So consequently, we are not immune to this. And it is filtering through to food prices and other prices as well. So with that context, do remember that, yes, inflation has been an issue that we do take very seriously. Inflation indeed is running above the 2 to 6% range that the Monetary Policy Committee has been given to target. So it is something that the Monetary Policy Committee will indeed take into account when it does next monetary policy evaluation. As far as the government is concerned, certainly there are certain inputs that the government will consider, whether it's in terms of how we think about food stocks, for example, and there are, as you know, concerns about the upcoming crops because of rain variations across the country. So we will be managing this very actively. However, in a world where, even in developed countries, is double-digit inflation is, almost every developed country is seeing double-digit inflation, and in emerging markets like and others, you are seeing inflation in the 60, 70, 80% range. With that background, I think India has managed to do rather well, and there is no major domestic supply-side driven inflation that we can yet see.
Mrs. Sanyal, the food prices is something that impacts the household budgets. And also you have highlighted that there has been an uneven monsoon which could keep the food prices high. The statement that came from the ministry was about adverse base effect. For a common man, explain how worried should he or she be, and when will the household budget stabilize? Is it happening in the next few weeks, or we have to wait a little longer?
I think the ordinary consumer will have to take into account, one, there is a external impact of oil prices that frankly we can do limited things about. But as far as the overall macroeconomic stability is concerned, the government is very concerned about it. And as you would have seen throughout the COVID shock period, we are a government that takes macroeconomic stability very, very seriously. And so in that, with that background and context, I would say that, sure, there may be some ups and downs as far as food prices is concerned, but they will be managed. We do have more than adequate food reserves in the country. So even though there are these shocks that may have from external shocks and also uneven uneven rainfall at home, I think we have the capacity to more than manage this, even if occasionally the inflation rate may be somewhat higher than we may like. I think given the global context, we are doing more than well.
Is there any respite in sight? Let me ask that question again. The reason why I'm asking you is high inflation is coupled with low IIP numbers. What does it mean for the economy overall?
Personally, I'm not very concerned about the low IIP number. Everybody is aware that the IIP that India uses is now well outdated and needs to be updated. It is a same factory indicator in an economy where not just the overall economy, but even the manufacturing sector has completely reoriented itself, and this is not being captured by the IIP. My own sense is that there is more than adequate momentum in the economy. The services sector, of course, is booming, but even the manufacturing sector is doing well enough, and that is not being captured. For example, we are doing well in certain areas like electronics, and that doesn't get captured at all in this, what is called the same factory approach to IIPs. So I think this is really a case of changing the IIP than anything else. You will get a much better sense of the momentum in the manufacturing sector, looking things like PMI, or looking at even the P numbers or G numbers which come out, which are done on a much bigger pool using the Ministry of Corporate Affairs database, which is a much, much bigger database. So I am not too concerned about the growth momentum at all, but macroeconomic stability is something that we keep a hawk's eye on. And that, as I said, although we have managed way better than pretty much any other country in the world, we are concerned about this, and we will remain concerned about it and will actively manage it.
The centre had prohibited exports of food products such as wheat, rice and maida to curb price rise, but no visible impact has been felt.
Now, of course, this is something you actively manage. This is not some grand plan about how to manage prices. There are weather-related variations. And by the way, those weather-related variations are not just in India. Do remember that China is facing a major drought and therefore will be importing rice. There have been all kinds of disruptions in Europe from drought, not just the war. So in that context, we need to manage not only domestic supplies, but do take into account the fact that pressures on food prices may vary even externally, and therefore have a blowback into our markets. We do, after all, export significant amounts of food to the rest of the world. This is not to suggest that we should completely ban it, but we do need to actively manage it. And that is precisely what we are doing.
The inflation numbers in rural parts of India is higher than the urban centers. What explains this?
So again, as I said, there may be variations across the country, including in rural areas. As I said, food prices have variations as well. But we also have seen in certain parts of the food market very recently prices crash. I have seen, for example, tomato and garlic prices in just the last few weeks come down sharply, and farmers being annoyed about this as well. So this is something that has to be actively managed, and there is no sort of one button that we need to press in order to solve it. Having said that, overall food stocks remain comfortable. Given the context of disruptions globally, inflation in India is still very well managed. The Reserve Bank of India and the Monetary Policy Committee are more than capable of managing whatever pressures may come, because overall growth momentum is strong. The banks are in a very good shape. And so if necessary, if they do tighten a little bit more, the system in general can more than take it.
The inflation is skyrocketing, as I've been saying, and tripping industrial recovery. Will all this mean another rate hike by RBI in its month-end policy?
Well, I can't comment for the Monetary Policy Committee. That is for them to take decisions. As I said, I actually disagree with you that the momentum in the growth is slowing very sharply. There is good growth momentum in the economy at multiple levels. So I am not too concerned about specifically what the IIP is showing at all. But as I keep mentioning to you, and I said that before, we have our macroeconomic indicators are in good nick, and we are more than capable of retaining inflation within the band in the not too distant future. Particularly since, as you can see, oil prices globally have begun to come off. Now, of course, I'm not in the business of predicting oil prices, but I'm just saying that oil prices are now coming off. And internal domestic supply side conditions remain in very good shape. If anything, we probably have the best supply side conditions we have had in a long time, and perhaps the best there is in the world. So given that, I think there are no real reason for being concerned on the macroeconomic stability front or on the GDP growth front.
Mr. Sanyal, will the gas crisis in Europe mean that the inflationary trend will continue? Because there is an SBI research report that says that the worst is yet to come globally.
Well, I'm not in the business of predicting how Russia will behave over the winter. All I can say, if there is a disruption, that disrupts everywhere around the world. Obviously, it causes stress in Europe itself, which is an export market for us. And anyway, disruptions in the world cause problems. Imports back into India also get affected. So any supply side disruptions anywhere on the planet in a interlinked world has an impact, and we will deal with it as it goes. But I have no way of predicting exactly how Russia will or will not supply gas into the future. It is something that we have to keep an eye on, and build bulwarks where we can, stock up on inputs where we can, and so on. But it is something that we will retain some concern about.
My last question to you. What explains this trend that the US dollar is going up with respect to every other currency, including the Indian rupee?
Well, the US then printed a large amount of dollars through the COVID crisis, something that I had myself expressed some concern about at that time. And they are trying to unwind it. So when they unwind it, they tighten the supply of dollars, and dollar spikes up. And as you will be aware, they also have a serious inflation problem, some of the highest inflation in over a generation. So consequently, they are tightening, and the the dollar is consequently strengthening against everybody, including the rupee. But let me point out here that the rupee is actually appreciating against everybody other than the dollar. We have appreciated against the yen, the euro, the British pound. And I am of the opinion that we should not be targeting a nominal level against the US dollar. If we do that, we will be unnecessarily stressing our export sector and creating a target for speculators. So I agree with the RBI's policy of allowing the rupee to find its own level while using the foreign exchange reserves to sort of rein in volatility. So it doesn't allow the rupee to move too fast in any direction, but by and large allows it to find its own level. I think they have done it successfully, and I would support them continuing to doing this.
Sanjeev Sanyal, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being a newsmaker on News Epicenter and explaining the inflation numbers for our viewers. We are slipping into a short break. After that, there's some breaking news that is coming in from Bihar.